I was folding laundry when my parents issued the ultimatum that would destroy our family. Funny how life-shattering moments can arrive so quietly, wrapped in the mundane task of matching socks. My name is Tessa, and at 26, I never expected to be paying rent to sleep in my childhood bedroom. But there I was, sitting cross-legged on my narrow twin bed, while my mother Quinn stood in the doorway with that particular smile she reserves for uncomfortable conversations. "We need to discuss the new living arrangements," she said, gesturing for my father Wilson to join her. He shuffled in behind her, avoiding my eyes. Now that Christian and Angela are married, things need to change. I set down the half-folded t-shirt in my lap. "What kind of changes?" "Well, they'll be taking the master bedroom, of course. Your father and I are moving to the guest suite downstairs, and—" She paused, her smile tightening. "We think it's time you started contributing properly." "Contributing?" I echoed, though I already knew where this was heading. My stomach dropped as I thought about the utility bills I'd been quietly paying for the past 3 years, the groceries I bought weekly, the home repairs I'd funded without complaint. "Rent," my father finally spoke, still not meeting my gaze. $800 a month, starting next month." The laundry basket tipped as I stood up, spilling clean clothes onto the floor. $800? For this? I gestured around my childhood bedroom, barely big enough for a desk and dresser. The walls still wore the pale yellow paint I'd chosen at 13. "It's more than fair," my mother insisted. "Angela's family thinks we're being too generous, actually. Most young people your age have their own places by now." "Most young people weren't told their whole lives that this house would always be their home," I countered, keeping my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "And most young people's parents don't give their master bedroom to their golden child while charging their daughter rent." A sharp knock interrupted us. Christian appeared in the doorway, his new wife Angela hovering behind him with that sweet, vacant smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Everything okay in here?" he asked, though his tone suggested he knew exactly what was happening. "Mom, did you tell her about the renovation plans, too?" "Renovation plans?" I felt my chest tighten. "Oh, yes," Angela chimed in, stepping forward. "We're thinking of expanding the master suite. Nothing major, just taking down a wall or two. We'll need everyone to chip in, of course. Family project and all that." I looked at each of their faces, my mother's determined smile, my father's averted gaze, Christian's casual entitlement, Angela's calculated innocence. Something inside me shifted like a gear finally clicking into place. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice coming out cooler than I expected. "You want me to pay rent for my childhood bedroom, which is basically a closet, while also contributing to renovations that will make my brother's space bigger?" "Don't be dramatic, Tessa," Christian sighed. "It's about family. You've always been so difficult about these things." "Difficult?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I've been paying the utilities since I got my first real job. I buy groceries every week. I paid for the new water heater last winter when it broke. Where were your contributions, Christian?" The room went silent. My mother's smile faltered for just a moment before she recovered. "That was your choice, dear. Nobody asked you to do those things." "No," I agreed quietly. "Nobody ever asks me. They just expect." I turned away from them, facing the window I'd looked out of for 26 years. The maple tree outside had grown so tall, its branches now scraped against the glass. I'd grown too, though somehow they hadn't noticed. "I'll have my answer about the rent by tomorrow," I said finally, not turning around. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to finish my laundry." They filed out one by one, my mother pausing at the door. "We're only trying to be fair, Tessa. Everyone needs to do their part." After they left, I sat back down on my bed, surrounded by scattered laundry and 2 decades of memories. My hand brushed against something under my pillow, an old photograph of my grandmother Mary, taken at her sister's funeral years ago. I barely remembered that day, except for the strange paperwork she'd had me sign, insisting it was just in case. Looking at her shrewd eyes in the photograph, I wondered if she'd somehow seen this coming. If she'd known that one day I'd need more than memories to protect myself from my own family. I picked up my phone and texted my friend Sebastian. Need legal advice. How soon can you meet? Sebastian's coffee had gone cold by the time I finished laying out every bill, receipt, and bank statement from the past 3 years. The cafe buzzed around us, but we sat in our own bubble of spreadsheets and mounting frustration. So let me get this straight, he said, tapping his pen against the table. You've basically been their unofficial property manager since 2020? I nodded, pushing another stack of papers toward him. Water heater, property taxes, utilities, groceries. I even paid for the roof repair last spring when that storm hit. And Christian contributed nothing? Unless you count his winning personality. I tried to smile, but couldn't quite manage it. Mom always said he was focusing on his career. Meanwhile, I was just being helpful because I lived there. Sebastian leaned back, his paralegal instincts clearly kicking in. You know this isn't normal, right? Parents don't usually make one kid pay for everything while giving another the master bedroom. Try telling them that. I pulled out my phone, showing him the latest text from my mother. Don't forget, rent starts next month. Angela's father knows a contractor for the renovation estimates. Jesus, Sebastian muttered. They're really going all in on this, aren't they? The waitress stopped by to refill our coffees, and I waited until she left before continuing. You want to know the worst part? Last night, Angela called me the basement tenant at dinner, like it was some kind of joke. What did your parents say? They laughed. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, trying to stop them from shaking. Even Dad, who hasn't said more than 2 words about this whole situation. Sebastian started organizing the papers into neat piles, his face thoughtful. You know, this reminds me of something. Didn't you mention signing some papers for your grandmother years ago, at her sister's funeral? The memory hit me like a splash of cold water. Yes, but I barely remember it. I was 19, upset about Aunt Prudence dying. Grandma Mary pulled me aside after the service, had me sign something, said it was insurance for the future. Do you still have those papers? I shook my head. They're probably in her old files somewhere. Mom boxed everything up after she died. Find them, Sebastian said firmly. Your grandmother was sharp as a tack until the end. She wouldn't have made you sign something without a reason. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Christian. Angela's picking out paint colors for the renovation. Mom says you need to confirm the rent arrangement today. They're not even pretending anymore, I said, showing Sebastian the message. It's like they think they can just erase me from my own home. Then don't let them. Sebastian's voice took on an edge I rarely heard. Stop paying their bills, start documenting everything, and find those papers from your grandmother. But they're family, I whispered, hating how small my voice sounded. Family doesn't treat family like an ATM, he countered. Look, I've seen this before. People take advantage because they think you'll never stand up to them. Prove them wrong. I stared at the piles of receipts, years of silent contributions spread out before me. Where do I even start? The attic, Sebastian said, already pulling out his laptop. That's where people usually store important documents. I'll draft a formal request for any paperwork related to your grandmother's estate. In the meantime, don't agree to anything. Don't sign anything. And most importantly, don't let them guilt you into backing down. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a call from my mother. I let it go to voicemail. What if I find something? I asked. What if Grandma Mary really did leave me some kind of insurance? Sebastian's eyes met mine. Then you use it, because something tells me that's exactly what she wanted you to do. I gathered the papers, my mind already racing to the dusty boxes in our attic. Before I could leave, Sebastian grabbed my arm. Tessa, wait. Remember what your grandmother used to say about your Aunt Prudence? How the family pushed her out, too? I nodded slowly. She said Prudence wasn't the black sheep. She was just the first one to stop playing their game. Maybe it's time you stopped playing, too. Walking home, I thought about Aunt Prudence, about Grandma Mary, about all the quiet women in my family who'd eventually had enough. The house loomed ahead of me, and through the window I could see Angela directing movers who were already rearranging the master bedroom. My phone buzzed one final time. "Angela, don't forget, basement tenant rent is due on the 1st. I looked up at the attic window and made my decision. It was time to find those papers. The attic was a maze of cardboard boxes and forgotten furniture, thick with dust and decades of family secrets. I waited until everyone was asleep before climbing up, armed with a flashlight and determination. My grandmother's belongings had to be here somewhere. 3 hours of searching yielded nothing but sneezing fits and cobwebs until I spotted it. A metal filing cabinet tucked behind Dad's old rowing machine. The drawer stuck at first, protesting with a screech that made me freeze, listening for movement downstairs. Inside, organized with my grandmother's characteristic precision, were dozens of manila folders, birth certificates, tax returns. And there, labeled simply "House," was what I'd been looking for. My hands trembled as I pulled out the deed. The first page looked standard enough, but as I flipped through, my heart stopped. There it was, in black and white, my name, listed as holding 1/4 ownership of the property. My phone was in my hand before I could think. Despite the late hour, Sebastian answered on the second ring. "I found it," I whispered, trying to keep my voice down. "Sebastian, I own part of the house. Grandma Mary left me a quarter share when she died. Send me pictures, every page." He sounded wide awake now. "And Tessa? Don't tell your family yet." I heard rustling as he got out of bed, probably heading for his laptop. While I carefully photographed each document, my mind raced. Why hadn't anyone told me about this? How long had they known? "Got them," Sebastian said after a moment. Tessa, this is legally binding. Your grandmother knew exactly what she was doing. The clause is airtight." "What does it mean?" "It means you're not a tenant. You're an owner. They can't charge you rent, and—" He paused, and I could hear him typing. "You have the right to force a sale if the other owners won't buy you out." The flashlight beam shook as the implications hit me. I could make them sell the house? Yes, and given current market value, your quarter share would be worth, more typing, around $200,000. I sat down hard on an old trunk, disturbing a cloud of dust. Below me I heard footsteps, someone getting a midnight snack. Probably Christian. He always raided the fridge after midnight. "There's more," Sebastian continued. "There's a letter here, attached to the deed. It's addressed to you." I shuffled through the papers until I found it, an envelope with my name in my grandmother's elegant handwriting. Inside was a single page. "Dearest Tessa, if you're reading this, then they finally pushed too far. Your Aunt Prudence faced the same battle, family loyalty used as a chain, not a bond. I couldn't help her then, but I can help you now. This house is your heritage as much as theirs. Use this truth wisely, but use it if you must. Sometimes love means standing your ground. All my faith, Grandma Mary." She knew, I whispered into the phone. She knew they'd do this. "What are you going to do?" Sebastian asked quietly. Before I could answer, the attic door creaked open. Light spilled up the stairs, and Angela's voice drifted up. "Tessa, what are you doing up there?" I shoved the papers into my jacket. "Just looking for some old photos," I called down, trying to sound casual. "Can't sleep?" "Well, keep it down. Some of us have to be up early to meet the contractor." Her footsteps retreated, but her message was clear. This wasn't my space anymore either. "Sebastian?" I whispered once I was sure she was gone. "How quickly can we file the paperwork?" "I can have it ready by morning. But Tessa, once we do this, there's no going back. They'll know you know." I thought about my tiny bedroom, about Angela's smirking comments, about years of being the family ATM, about my grandmother writing this letter years ago, giving me an escape route she knew I'd eventually need. "Good," I said, surprised by the steel in my voice. "Let them know. Come to my office first thing. We'll need to move fast before they can try to counter it." I crept back downstairs, the documents secure against my chest. As I passed the master bedroom, I heard Christian and Angela laughing, probably planning their renovation. Down the hall, my parents' door was closed. They'd never even noticed I was awake. Back in my room, I pulled out the letter again. My grandmother's words seemed to glow in the darkness. Sometimes love means standing your ground. I texted Sebastian one last time. See you at 8 a.m. Time to show them what the basement tenant can do. Then I lay back on my childhood bed, listening to the house creak and settle, knowing it would never sound quite the same again. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, I'd stop being the quiet one who paid the bills and kept the peace. Tomorrow, I'd become my grandmother's granddaughter. The timing was perfect. Angela had dragged my entire family to her parents' lake house for the weekend, insisting they all needed to discuss renovation plans. I'd claimed a work emergency to stay behind. They didn't even question it. The reliable daughter, always working, always making excuses, if they only knew. Everything's filed, Sebastian said, watching me pack the last box into my car. The notice will be delivered Monday morning. Are you sure about this? I closed the trunk, trying not to think about how 26 years of life fit into just 6 cardboard boxes. They're at the lake house until tomorrow night. By the time they get back, I'll be gone. And the note? I patted my jacket pocket, feeling the envelope inside. Short and sweet, just like we discussed. Sebastian helped me do one final sweep of my room. It looked strange empty, smaller somehow, with the pale rectangles on the walls where my photos used to hang. I'd left the furniture. It wasn't worth taking. What about your grandmother's things? He asked as I lingered in the doorway. Already moved them to a storage unit, I said. Along with Aunt Prudence's old letters. I'm not leaving anything they can use against me. Downstairs, I took my time walking through each room. The kitchen where I'd cooked countless family meals. The living room where I'd watched Christian open Christmas presents while I got practical gifts like grocery store gift cards. The dining room where just days ago they'd demanded rent from their own daughter. You don't have to leave the key, Sebastian reminded me. Legally, you're still an owner. I placed it on the counter anyway, next to my note. I want them to know this was my choice. The note was simple. I found my own sense of fairness. TPS, check your mail Monday. We drove to my new apartment across town, a small but sunny one-bedroom I'd secretly rented last week. Sebastian helped me carry the boxes up, neither of us talking much. The reality of what I'd just done was starting to sink in. What time is it? I asked, setting down the last box. He checked his phone. Just past 3. They won't be back until tomorrow evening. Good. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Time for phase 2. One by one, I canceled every automatic payment I'd been making for the house. Utilities, insurance, the cleaning service I'd hired for Mom, the lawn care subscription, the Netflix account they all used, everything. They're going to lose their minds, Sebastian said, watching me work. They're going to have to learn to pay their own bills, I corrected, just like real adults. My phone buzzed, a text from Angela. The contractor's estimate came in. Your share of the renovation will be $15,000. We'll need it by next week to start work. I showed Sebastian the message, and we both laughed. Should I tell her? I asked. Let the legal notice do the talking. I spent that evening setting up my new place, trying not to jump every time my phone buzzed. More texts from Angela about the renovation, one from Mom about the rent check. Even Dad sent his rare message, "Don't forget to mow before we get back." None of them had any idea what was coming. Around midnight, Sebastian called. It's done. The notice has been posted to their door and copies are being mailed to each of them. Official legal notification of your ownership stake and intent to force a sale if they don't buy you out at market value. I was sitting on my new balcony, watching the city lights. What happens next? They have 30 days to either buy your share or agree to sell, given the property value and their financial situation. He paused. They'll probably have to sell. Good. Are you okay? I thought about my grandmother's letter, safely stored in my new desk, about years of being taken for granted, about Angela's smirking emoji and my brother's entitled demands. I'm better than okay, I said. I'm free. The next evening, right around the time I knew they'd be getting home, my phone exploded. Text messages, voicemails, emails. I turned it off without reading any of them. Instead, I opened my laptop and wrote an email to my grandmother's old address. Defunct now, but it felt right. Dear Grandma Mary, I finally read your letter. I finally understood what you were trying to tell me all those years ago. Thank you for giving me the key to my own freedom. They thought they were evicting me from my childhood bedroom, but in the end, I'm evicting them from my life. Love, Tessa. I hit send, knowing it would bounce back. It didn't matter. Somewhere I was sure she knew. Tomorrow would bring chaos. But tonight, in my quiet new apartment, I was just a girl who'd finally learned to stand her ground. When I finally turned my phone back on 3 days later, I had 147 text messages, 58 missed calls, and one particularly interesting email from Angela. We thought you'd never sink this low. I forwarded it to Sebastian with a single word. Really? He called immediately. Have you read any of the other messages? Not yet. I've been enjoying the silence. I was sitting at my new kitchen counter, drinking coffee I'd made myself, not having to share with anyone. How bad is it? Your mother's threatening to disown you. Your father's begging you to be reasonable. Christian. He paused. Well, Christian's showing his true colors. Let me guess. He's furious that his renovation plans are ruined? Among other things. But here's what's interesting. Angela knew about your ownership stake. The coffee cup froze halfway to my mouth. What? She slipped up in one of her rage texts. Said something about how they never thought you'd actually use the clause against family. They knew, Tessa. They knew, and they still tried to charge you rent. The betrayal hit harder than I expected. All this time, they'd known about my grandmother's gift and chosen to hide it from me, to use me. My phone buzzed again, Christian calling for the 100th time. This time, I answered. How dare you? He started before I could speak. Do you have any idea what you've done to Mom? To Angela? We had plans? Funny, I had plans too, like not being charged rent for a house I partly own. That was different. You were supposed to be the good sister, the one who helps out. Not some vindictive. Careful, I cut in, my voice ice cold. Remember who holds the cards now. Angela's family won't help us buy you out, he said, his tone shifting to something almost pleading. And we can't afford it ourselves. You're going to make us sell our home. No, Christian, I'm going to make you sell my home too, the one you tried to take from me. A new voice cut in, Angela, apparently on speakerphone. We knew you were jealous of us getting the master bedroom, but this is pathetic. I laughed, surprising myself with how genuine it sounded. Jealous? I'm not jealous, Angela. I'm just finally getting what's mine. By the way, how's that renovation estimate looking now? They both started talking at once, but I hung up. Seconds later, a text from my mother arrived. Please come home. We can discuss this as a family. I showed it to Sebastian, who'd been listening quietly. Should I respond? Only through the lawyers now, he advised. But heads up, your father's here to see you. What? I looked out my window and sure enough, Dad's car was pulling into the visitor's parking spot. How did he find my address? He came to my office first. Seemed different. Said he needs to talk to you alone. I watched my father get out of his car, looking older than I'd ever seen him. What do you think? I think you should hear him out, but record everything, just in case. Dad knocked softly. Nothing like Mom's commanding rap or Christian's entitled pounding. When I opened the door, he looked lost, clutching a familiar-looking folder. You knew, I said, before he could speak. You knew about Grandma Mary's deed. He nodded, sinking into my offered chair. I helped her set it up. She She made me promise not to tell anyone unless you found out on your own. Why? Because she knew what would happen. She saw how they treated you, how your mother favored Christian, how Angela was changing everything. He opened the folder, another copy of the deed. Mary said you needed an escape route. I never thought you'd need to use it. But you let them charge me rent, I said quietly. You watched them take advantage for years. I was a coward, he admitted, his voice breaking. I thought if I just kept the peace. But I was wrong. I failed you, Tessa. He pulled out another envelope, older, yellowed. Mary left this for when you finally stood up for yourself. I've been carrying it for years. Inside was a bank statement, a separate account, in my name, where my grandmother had been quietly depositing money. Years of birthday checks I thought I'd lost, investment returns, small inheritances, all saved for me. There's enough there for a down payment on your own house, Dad said softly. She wanted you to have a real home, not just a room they could take away. I stared at the statement, then at my father. Why are you showing me this now? Because you're stronger than I ever was, he said, standing to leave. And because Mary was right, sometimes love means standing your ground. At the door, he turned back. They're meeting with lawyers tomorrow. Don't back down, Tessa. Not this time. I won't, I promised, both to him and to my grandmother's memory. Not ever again. The mediation room felt too small for all the tension it contained. My mother sat rigid in her chair, while Christian paced behind her. Angela kept checking her phone, probably hoping her family would swoop in with a financial rescue. Dad sat apart from them, staring at his hands. Sebastian touched my arm as the mediator entered. Remember what we discussed. Let me do the talking. Can we please begin? My mother announced before anyone could speak. We're here to talk sense into my daughter. The mediator, a sharp-eyed woman named Rita, raised an eyebrow. Actually, we're here to discuss the legal partition of property ownership. Ms. Tessa has the right to— She has the right to destroy her family? Christian interrupted. To throw us out of our home? Your home? Sebastian opened his briefcase. Let's talk about that. I have here 3 years of utility payments, property tax contributions, and maintenance costs, all paid by Tessa, while you were living there rent-free. Angela scoffed. She chose to pay those. Nobody forced her. Actually, Sebastian continued, laying out documents, I have texts showing you and your husband demanding these payments, quite aggressively, in fact. The mediator reviewed the papers. And then you attempted to charge her rent for a property she partially owns? We didn't know, my mother protested. That's not true, Dad spoke up suddenly. Everyone turned to stare at him. We knew. Mary told us when she did it. We thought Tessa would never find out. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's face went white. Wilson, what are you saying? I'm saying we took advantage of our daughter. We knew she owned part of the house, and we still tried to make her pay rent. We still gave her bedroom to Christian. We still treated her like— He looked at me for the first time. Like she didn't matter. This is ridiculous, Christian snapped. Angela's pregnant. We need the space. You can't just— Pregnant. The word slipped out before I could stop it. Angela at least had the grace to look embarrassed. We were going to announce it at family dinner, she mumbled. Before all this. So that's why you needed the renovation done quickly, Sebastian noted, planning to turn Tessa's room into a nursery? My mother seized on this new angle. You see, you can't force a sale now. Not with a baby coming. What kind of aunt would do that to her own niece or nephew? The kind who's tired of being used, I said, finally breaking my silence. The kind who realizes that having a baby doesn't entitle you to someone else's property. Rita cleared her throat. The law is clear here. Tessa owns 1/4 of the property. She has the right to force a sale unless the other owners can buy her out at market value. Which is? Angela asked. Given current market rates and the property assessment. Rita consulted her papers. Her share would be approximately $200,000. Christian laughed bitterly. We don't have that kind of money. You know we don't. Then the house goes on the market, Sebastian stated firmly. You have 30 days to either buy her out or agree to a sale. Tessa, my mother tried one last time, her voice softening to the tone she used when she wanted something. We're family. We can work this out. Whatever you're feeling. I'm not feeling anything anymore, I interrupted. That's the point. You've taken everything I had to give, my money, my space, my trust. There's nothing left. But the baby? We'll have 2 sets of grandparents with plenty of resources, Sebastian cut in. This meeting is about property rights, not emotional manipulation. Rita nodded. I'll draft the paperwork. You have 30 days to make arrangements. After that, the property goes to public sale. As everyone stood to leave, Angela grabbed my arm. We thought you'd never do this, she hissed. We thought you knew your place. I looked at her hand until she dropped it. That's the problem. I finally do know my place, and it's not in that house anymore. Outside, Dad caught up with me in the parking lot. Your grandmother would be proud, he said quietly. Are you? I asked. He smiled sadly. I'm proud and ashamed. Proud of you for standing up. Ashamed it took this long. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. When you regret this, don't come crying to us. I showed it to Sebastian, who'd been waiting by his car. Think I'll regret it? Only if you let them make you doubt yourself, he said. Remember what your grandmother wrote. Sometimes love means standing your ground. Even if it means losing your family? He looked at me seriously. Maybe especially then. I drove home to my quiet apartment, thinking about family and boundaries and what it means to truly own something, like not just a house, but yourself. In 30 days, everything would change. But maybe it already had. 28 days after the mediation, I stood in front of my childhood home, watching the realtor hammer the for sale sign into the lawn. My mother yanked the curtains closed as I walked up the driveway one last time. The door opened before I could knock. Christian blocked the entrance, arms crossed. Come to gloat? Actually, I came to get the rest of Grandma Mary's things. I held up the court order. As per the agreement. He stepped aside reluctantly, and I followed him into the house. The changes were immediate and jarring, moving boxes everywhere, Angela's designer furniture already wrapped in plastic. The master bedroom door stood open, revealing bare walls where their renovation plans would never materialize. Angela's parents won't help? I asked, though I already knew the answer. They said we were idiots for not buying the house outright when we had the chance. He kicked an empty box. Happy now? Before I could answer, my mother's voice cut through the tension. Oh, so now she appears, after destroying everything. She stood at the top of the stairs, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Dad appeared behind her carrying more boxes. Quinn, he warned softly, don't. Don't what? Don't tell our daughter what she's done? How she's torn this family apart over money? I walked past them toward the attic stairs. This was never about money. Then what? Angela emerged from the kitchen, one hand protectively over her barely visible pregnancy. What was it about? I paused on the stairs, looking back at my family, all the people who'd taken and taken until I had nothing left to give. It was about respect, about finally being treated like I matter. Matter? My mother laughed sharply. You matter so much you're making your pregnant sister-in-law homeless? No one's homeless, I said, continuing up to the attic. You all have places to go. You're just angry because for once you can't control the situation. I heard them following me up, watching as I went straight to the corner where I'd found the deed weeks ago. There were more boxes there, all of Grandma Mary's things, untouched since her death. You knew, my mother said suddenly, her voice different. Wilson told me you knew we hid the deed from you, that we lied. Yes. And this is your revenge? I turned to face her, arms full of my grandmother's photo albums. "This is my inheritance, the one you tried to steal from me." "We never—" "You did. You knew I owned part of this house and still tried to charge me rent, still gave away rooms that weren't yours to give, still treated me like a tenant in my own home." Angela stepped forward. "My parents might still—" "Stop!" I cut her off. "Your parents won't help because they know you're wrong. Everyone knows you're wrong. You just can't admit it." The silence that followed was broken only by Dad's quiet footsteps as he came to help me with the boxes. "I found something else in these files," I continued, pulling out a yellowed envelope. "Letters between Grandma Mary and Aunt Prudence about how this family drives out anyone who doesn't play by their rules." My mother's face went pale. "Your aunt abandoned us?" "No, you pushed her away, just like you tried to push me away. But Grandma Mary made sure I had options she never had." Christian snorted. "Options? You mean a legal loophole to blackmail your own family?" "No," Dad spoke up, surprising everyone. "A chance to break the cycle, to stop being the family doormat." "Wilson!" My mother looked shocked. "He's right," I said, picking up the last box. "And now it's done. The house sells next week. You all have your shares coming. Use them to build something new, preferably something with healthier boundaries." As I reached the bottom of the stairs, Angela called out, "What about the baby? Your niece or nephew will never know you now." I turned back one last time. Maybe someday they'll find their own grandmother's letters and learn the same lesson I did. Outside, Sebastian was waiting by his car. "All done?" I nodded, loading the boxes into his trunk. Behind us, the realtor was taking photos of the house, her camera clicking away as she captured the end of an era. "Your mother's watching from the window," Sebastian noted. "Let her watch. Let her remember this moment the next time she tries to take advantage of someone's love." As we drove away, I caught one last glimpse of my childhood home in the rearview mirror. The "for sale" sign swayed gently in the breeze, and for the first time in weeks, I felt nothing but peace. My phone buzzed, a text from Dad. "Mary would be proud, and so am I." I smiled, thinking of my grandmother's words about standing your ground. Sometimes it turns out the ground you stand on is worth more than the family trying to pull you down. The keys to my new house jingled in my hand as I walked up the path. Not an apartment this time, a real house, bought with my share from the family home sale and the savings my grandmother had secretly set aside for me. Sebastian whistled as he carried a box through the front door. "Your grandmother would have loved this place." "She does love it," I corrected, setting down my own box. "I'm pretty sure she orchestrated this whole thing from wherever she is." My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "Moving in today?" "Yes," I replied. "Want to see it?" His response came quickly. "Already on my way." I was unpacking kitchen boxes when he arrived. He stood in the doorway, taking in the sunny room with its big windows and morning light. "It looks like Mary's old kitchen," he said softly. "She always loved spaces like this." "I know. That's why I chose it." I handed him a mug of coffee. "How's Mom?" He sighed, accepting the coffee. "Angry, hurt, living with your Aunt Linda while she figures things out. Christian and Angela?" "Don't tell me," I interrupted. "I don't need to know." "Fair enough." He pulled something from his jacket, another envelope. "Found this in my old files. It's the last letter Mary wrote to Prudence before she died. Thought you should have it." I took it carefully, recognizing my grandmother's handwriting. The letter was short. "Dearest Prudence, I've done what you asked, made sure Tessa will have options we never had. The house share is her escape route if she needs it. Your niece is stronger than she knows, just like you were. When she finally stands up to them, remember that courage runs in our blood. All my love, Mary." "Did you know?" I asked Dad. "About her plans for me?" He nodded slowly. "She made me promise to watch over you, to make sure you found the deed when you needed it most. I failed at the first part, but at least the second worked out." Sebastian came in with another box. "Living room's almost done. Want to see?" We walked through the house, my house, room by room. Each space felt right, felt mine in a way no room in the family home ever had. No strings attached, no obligations, no guilt. "Oh," Sebastian said, checking his phone. "The real estate agent sent an update. Your old house just got its final offer." "And?" "Angela's parents bought it. Apparently they're turning it into a rental property." I laughed at the irony. So everyone really did have to move out. "Karma's funny that way," Dad said, but he was smiling too. The doorbell rang, a delivery I'd been waiting for. The framer had finished with Grandma Mary's photos, including one I'd never seen before, her and Aunt Prudence as young women, standing proud in front of their own first house. "Where will you put it?" Sebastian asked as I unwrapped it. "Right here," I said, hanging it in the entryway, "so everyone who enters knows whose house this really is." Dad touched the photo gently. "Mary would say it's yours, completely yours." "It is," I agreed, "but I wouldn't have it without her." As if on cue, the morning light streamed through the windows, catching the glass of the frame and making the photo glow. For a moment, I could almost feel my grandmother's presence, proud, fierce, and free. "I should go," Dad said, heading for the door. "Your mother might call, eventually. When she does—" "I'll be here," I said, "in my own house, living my own life. She can visit when she's ready to respect that." He hugged me, something he hadn't done in years. "Mary was right about you being strong." After he left, Sebastian and I sat on my new porch, watching the neighborhood kids play across the street. No renovation demands, no family drama, no rent due for a room that was never really mine. "Happy?" he asked. "More than that," I said. "I'm free." My phone buzzed one last time, an email from an unknown address. The subject line read, "Found this in Mom's things. Thought you should see it. Prudence." Attached was a photo I'd never seen, my grandmother in her garden, a much younger me helping her plant flowers. On the back, she'd written, "Teaching Tessa about roots, the kind you choose to plant and the kind you choose to pull up." I showed it to Sebastian, who smiled. "Perfect spot for a garden here, you know." "I know," I said, looking out at my new yard, "and I know exactly what I'm going to plant first." Tomorrow I'd start my garden, choosing my own roots, growing something new. But today, sitting on my porch in the warm sun, I was exactly where I needed to be, in a house built on strength, not guilt, in a home that was finally, completely mine.